Another week and another, you could argue, marquee NFC matchup for the Chicago Bears as in the late Sunday afternoon slot, they play host at Soldier Field to the New Orleans Saints and Drew Brees. Oh boy! If they want to make something out of this season, better figure things out quickly after Monday night. My goodness. I shouldn't say my goodness, though, because I'm not really surprised at all. Anyways, let's take a look ahead at this matchup coming up on Sunday afternoon. Starting from the New Orleans Saints perspective, they're 4-2, coming off of a close, hard-fought victory over the Panthers last week, 27-24. The Will Lutz 43-yarder in the fourth quarter ended up being the difference in the game. When you look at this team holistically over the course of the season, though, the offense just is not what it once was. And you can certainly attribute it to the fact that Michael Thomas has played exactly one game this year. That doesn't help when you give a guy number one wide receiver money and he's an elite NFL wide receiver and you've only had him for one out of your first 6 games. You know, in some ways, maybe the Saints should feel a little fortunate that somebody that means that much to their offense, that much to their team is out and they're still at 4-2. Like, worst places they could be. But if you've seen the Saints at all this year, you just see a guy in Drew Brees that where arm strength was never his big deal. Now you're at the point where, you know, he's clearly at the end of his rope in terms of his arm talent. He still completes a high percentage of passes, but frankly, a lot of guys do in the league now because the game and offenses have changed. And as a result, you know, a lot of shorter, quicker passes leads to padding of the stats in terms of completion percentage. But the arm talent just isn't there. Like, it's just not. He looks somewhat washed. Not totally washed, but he does look somewhat washed. So when you combine those factors, you say, yeah, you know what, this isn't the same Saints offense of years past that would, you know, scare the devil out of you or keep this team in every game. They got to play a more balanced, complete kind of team game in order to win now, because it can't just be the offense that carries them. You know, for the Saints, I will say defensively, some of the stats look okay. They're 6th in the league against the run and 6th in total yards allowed. But they have given up 23 or more points in every game that they played this season. So this is a team that, even though you might not be able to consistently march down the field on them all day in the running game, or you might not be able to get a ton of yards, and this is a team that will be prone to give up some plays and give up some points. So you got to be able to find ways to exploit that. I also look at this game from the Saints. It could be a little bit of a danger spot for them, playing a divisional rival last week. Now the Bears, in theory, they're 5-2. They're supposed to be a good team, so you would think maybe the Saints would be up for it. But then they're looking at, hey, we got the Bears on the road this week. Next week, we got to go to Tampa and play them on Monday night. You know, there could be that little bit of a thing. Up for a divisional opponent, 2 weeks, you got another divisional opponent. Right smack dab in the middle is a non-divisional opponent. There's a little bit of a chance for a trap game. Now, the Bears aren't 0-6 or 0-7. You know, at that point in time, I would actually feel much more passionately about the trap game for the Saints. But it is something to potentially watch out for. Is this team going to be firing on all cylinders coming out of the gate? Are they going to be truly ready to play? Are they going to be caught potentially looking ahead? And it looks like Michael Thomas is still out. So from Bears fans' perspective and from the Bears organization perspective, you know, it's one less player. It's one playmaker you don't have to deal with on Sunday afternoon. So, in theory, that potentially bodes well for this team. But you look at this Bears team, they're 5-2 now. That was a rough outing on Monday night. Like, the defense tried. You know, they weren't great, you know, but there's only been so much you could do. And eventually you could see where the Bears defense kind of mentally conceded at key points in time because they realize and understand that the offense back stinks. Their offensive line is atrocious. They can't run the damn ball. And their play caller and Matt Nagy is a fucking moron. So they know it only matters but so much what they do. And if they're not scoring touchdowns themselves, it's not going to matter. And crazy enough, the only touchdown the Bears scored on Monday night was a freaking fumble return touchdown. Is that right? What it was? It was a defensive touchdown. That's it. The 10 points. The defense gave 7. Almost feels like you're starting to think like this is a 63 Bears, where you're starting to have to tell the defense, you know, to sit there and have this attitude of telling the offense, hey, hold them. Give us the ball, give them the ball back, and we'll get you 6. You know, that's kind of the mindset and approach you feel like they have to take. Because this is really the same old saga dance. It's a tired, played-out way of Bears football. The defense makes some plays, but they have to be perfect in order for this team to win because the offense sucks and they can't do anything that matters. They lack the ability to make big plays. They're not consistent as a threat in the passing game. There's no explosiveness. There's no creativity or imagination. And even worse, compared to some other years of Bears football where they actually found ways to win double-digit games and make the playoffs and so forth, this team can't even run the fucking ball this year. So I compare them to 2001, but at least 2001 they had the A-Train and they had freaking James Allen in the backfield as their 1-2 combo. At least that team could run the ball. At least 2005, 2006 Bears had Thomas Jones, and then when he felt like it, Cedric Benson, rest in peace. At least they had those guys. In 2010, at least they had Matt Forte. In some of those teams, at least they had situations where they could kind of run the ball a little bit. Even 2018, they could kind of run the ball a little bit with Jordan Howard and Tariq Cohen. They can't run the ball now. So it's not even the same old formula of the past. How the hell do you think that this is going to go well? And you're also in the middle of a stretch here, the second of 3 consecutive games against legit playoff contenders. Monday night, we saw what happened against the Rams. Now you got the Saints here at home, and then next week you got to go on the road to play the Titans. Good luck with that one. If you're one of those Bears fans that thought, hey, maybe they could win one of these 3 games, this is the game you're pointing to. This is the one you're looking at and saying they have got to win this game because you don't have any confidence that they can go on the road next week and beat Tennessee. And if they lose this game and all of a sudden they're 5-4, all that hype that you guys had a few weeks ago, it's warning, warning, danger, danger. And you might think that they own the Vikings in the past couple of years, that's true. But do you really want to head into that Vikings game at 5-4, right before the bye? You never know what can happen in those divisional matchups. Bad news for the Bears. Bad news, Cody Whitehair's out. So the interior offensive line was already without James Daniels, now is without Cody Whitehair. They're in some trouble. Because their offensive line was already not good. And now they're missing 2 of the guys that could actually play at least a little bit. And then Allen Robinson has been cleared the concussion protocol, so it looks like he may be able to suit up on Sunday. Bears could certainly use him. But, then you wonder, you say, oh, they might be able to use him. But what the hell difference does it make? Is this coaching staff, by that I mean Matt Nagy doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Their quarterback is pedestrian. Their offensive line stinks. So even if Allen Robinson, you want to hit some big plays outside, you got to be able to protect Foles, and they can't do that. So how much does that even really matter? But you've got Khalil Mack and Eddie Jackson on the defense, both questionable. I don't know that Khalil Mack has practiced at all this week. That doesn't mean he won't play, but he's questionable right now. He hasn't practiced. How effective is he going to be? Similar with Eddie Jackson. These are 2 marquee players on this Bears defense. You don't want to go up against Drew Brees, even a depleted, diminished Drew Brees in this type of game without arguably 2 of your 3 best defensive players. When you look at the recent history, these 2 teams played last year, and the Saints easily won this one in Soldier Field, 36-25, and that wasn't even a Drew Brees-led Saints team. That was Teddy Bridgewater. He was the one that was torching the Bears that day, and it was Latavius Murray on the ground that was eating the Bears' asses up. And if you remember, it was a 36-10 game. At one point in time, the Bears actually had the lead 10-9, if you remember, and I think that was after Cordero Patterson's kickoff return touchdown. And then the Saints proceeded to immediately come back and score 27 unanswered points. So yeah, Trubisky, which was a theme of that year, scored some garbage time points when the Saints didn't care because the game was already wrapped up. But the recent history does not bode well for the Bears here. They really struggled. They were really bad. And the final score in no way, shape, or form is indicative of any closeness level of this game. Because if you remember last year, it was a washout. It was a blowout. The Saints pushed that shit in. So what has so significantly changed for both teams this year to think that it's going to be any different? Just saying. You look at the keys to victory first for the Saints. Drew Brees has got to avoid interceptions. I know he only has 3 on the year. But I say that to say he doesn't have the same level of arm talent that maybe he had 5-6 years ago. You don't have the same level of weapons in the Saints offense that you once did. One thing you don't want to do is give the Bears momentum by throwing a big pick or a couple of picks or having a couple of turnovers. If anything, you want to play it a little closer to the vest, punt, play the field position game a little bit, and make the Bears earn it. Because if you force them to have to earn it offensively over the course of 60 minutes, they're not going to do so. But if you let the Bears get an interception or a fumble return early, get a spark on defense, get some momentum, give the offense a short field, and that's exactly how you lose a game on the road, especially if you're the Saints here. They need to make sure they try to manufacture 20-plus total touches for Kamara, and I especially think they need to utilize him in the passing game. I'm thinking 10 targets, in the passing game, out of the backfield and all over the place because the Bears can't defend him. So you got to utilize him here. And I think at the tight end position as well, 5+ targets for Jared Cook, especially a couple of them in the red zone. The Bears will have trouble guarding him and Kamara. So you got to go to them in the passing game. And then I look defensively, Cameron Jordan, Trey Hendrickson. They've got to exploit the matchups against Charles Leno and Bobby Massey. Those two are terrible. Leno stinks and Massey absolutely sucks, period. So as a result, the Saints need their edge rushers to come out and get some pressure, get some heat off the edge. Because if you do, it's going to disrupt any rhythm the Bears attempt to have in their passing game and in their offense. And Foles is bound to throw one up for grabs. So you got to get after him. In terms of the Bears, their offensive line has to hold up. No Daniels, no Whitehair. Like, who can actually play on that offensive line? Massey and Leno stink. Like, Coward and Effetti, they stink. Like, this offensive line is really bad. It's almost like when your offensive line is really bad, again, and you do nothing to address the offensive line in the offseason, again, it's almost like you shouldn't be surprised that the offensive line stinks, again. I'm just saying. Hashtag fire Ryan Pace. One thing they should do offensively, though, is enough of the Demetrius Harris reps at tight end, specifically in the red zone. If you want to use tight ends in the red zone, then utilize Cole Kmet and Jimmy Graham. You know, Jimmy Graham can at least do one thing still in the league. He can be a weapon in the red zone. So stop pulling him from the damn game in the red zone. So one thing he can actually do and provide you some value. And then as far as Kmet goes, like, the kid's showing you some flashes. He did it again on Monday night. Get him the effing ball. Put him in these red zone situations. Now all of a sudden teams got to figure out, am I going to use safeties or linebackers? Like, that's going to cause problems for the Saints defense if they got to match up with both Kmet and Graham. So utilize them in the damn red zone when you get there. And Foles has got to be better able to judge when he needs to gamble or when he can gamble and when he can't. He just has a couple of throws each game that he just gets lucky when they don't get picked. Because they're just really, really bad decisions and or really poor physically executed throws. He has to better judge when he can gamble and when he either has to eat the ball, throw it away, or dump it short. That said, though, a good time to gamble a little bit more is to stop throwing 2-yard passes on 3rd and 9. Give me a fucking break. And then in terms of defensively, like, this is the thing I would say about Peyton Manning a few years back in 2015 when he was truly at the end of his rope and he was truly washed up for the Broncos. You know, get up and press and get physical with the Saints wide receivers. Don't be playing 7-10 yards off Pagano-style defense. Bump and run all damn game. Force Drew Brees to go over the top on your defense. Force him to do the thing that he really can't do anymore. Condense the box as much as possible. But one thing Drew Brees can still do is read defenses and pick you apart in terms of his mental intellect and his overall accuracy. So significantly narrow the windows of opportunity, significantly narrow the throwing windows for him. Don't be playing a bunch of soft zone. Don't be playing a bunch of off man. Get up and get in their shit. And if you get burned deep, then I can live with that. It's ridiculous if they don't. When I look at this game, I think a lot of Bears fans are trying to, look at this optimistically and say, hey, they can beat the Saints and they're going to rebound from the Monday night performance. And they might. Like, to be fair, as much as I'm going to rag on this team pretty much all year, so you might as well buckle up and get used to it. This is a chance for them to bounce back. The Saints team is good, but they are not great. And the Bears have already beaten the Bucs and the Panthers and the Falcons. So they're 3-0 against the NFC South. So they have a little bit of precedent here. So if I ignore the results of the match from last year and I look at it this year, I say, this kind of feels like a bit of a toss-up game. Because even though it's Drew Brees, it's not the same Drew Brees that we're used to. And they don't have Michael Thomas. And it's not going to get it. Like, there are plays to be had here for the Bears offense. But then I also need to remind folks that this is the Bears offense. And this is a actual good team. Not a great team. Like I said, the Saints are not a great team. But they're a playoff team. At this point, it feels like. Do I really have a bunch of confidence in them on a short week coming back? Nagy's not going to change anything. There's going to be no shift in approach in terms of the game plan. Yeah, I have no confidence in them. I think the defense will play well, but it's not going to be enough. So I'm thinking the Saints win this game something like 19-13, And like I said, go to the matchup last year. I know it's different years, but damn, they got blown out at home last year. Why would I think this year all of a sudden the Bears couldn't get beat at home by this Saints team? I don't think so. I worry about their ability to match up against Kamara. I think that's going to be a huge factor. And this Bears offensive line stinks. So I think the Saints will be able to do just enough to come in and get a win on Sunday afternoon.